Chosen one, your door of wealth has opened. Step into abundance. Now I want you to think about every door you have ever stood in front of and waited. Not walked through, not turned away from. Waited. The ones where something in you knew with a certainty that logic could not fully justify and that disappointment had not yet fully extinguished, that what was on the other side was real, that the promise was genuine, that the provision was actual and not imagined. And you waited. Because the door appeared closed. Because the timing felt off. Because the circumstances on your side of the threshold did not yet match the reality you could sense on the other side of it. I need to tell you something today that I need you to receive, not with your reasoning, but with the part of you that has been sensing things correctly all along, the part that knew, even in the seasons when knowing was the most costly thing you could do. The door you have been waiting in front of is not closed anymore. It has been open, for longer than you realize. And the only remaining question, the single, specific, urgent question that this moment is asking, is whether you are going to walk through it or continue waiting for a certainty that was never going to arrive before the walking. Today we answer that question together. Let me describe where you are right now with the kind of precision that I believe this moment deserves. You have been in a season of proximity, not quite in the abundance you can sense is yours, not retreating from it, but standing at its edge, close enough to feel its reality, far enough that the distance still feels significant. And the proximity has been its own particular form of difficulty. Because proximity without arrival creates a specific kind of tension that distance does not. When you are far from something, the gap is simply a gap. When you are close, when you can sense the texture of what is almost yours, when you have done the work and the waiting and the believing that should have been sufficient, the remaining distance feels more personal than it did when you were further away. It feels like something is being withheld, like there is a reason you cannot identify for why the door has remained in the almost open position rather than the fully open one, like perhaps the faith you have been exercising, the preparation you have been doing, the character you have been building. Perhaps they have not been enough. Perhaps you have not been enough. I need to dismantle that belief before we go any further. You are enough. You have always been enough. The door has not been closed because of a deficiency in you. It has been in the final stages of opening a process that, from the outside, is indistinguishable from being closed, but that is, in reality, something completely different. A door in the final stages of opening is not a closed door. It is an opening door. And an opening door, approached with the right posture, swings fully open rather than retreating. Today I want to give you the posture, the specific, practical, spiritually grounded way of approaching what is right in front of you, so that what has been almost yours becomes fully and completely yours. The door of abundance opens inward. You must step toward it. Not just wait for it. There is a misunderstanding about how divine provision works that keeps more chosen people on the wrong side of their breakthrough than any other single factor. The misunderstanding is this, that breakthrough happens to you, that the door opens from the outside, pushed by forces beyond your control, at a timing entirely determined by something other than your own movement. There is truth in that framing. Timing is not entirely in your hands. Provision comes from a source that operates with a wisdom and a perspective you do not fully have access to. But there is a dimension of abundance that requires your participation, that is not passive. The door of abundance opens inward, which means it requires someone on your side of it to move toward it, to reach for the handle, to apply the pressure of faith expressed through action rather than faith expressed through waiting. The step you have been holding back, the decision you have been circling, the commitment you have been approaching without quite making, the movement you have been prepared for without quite initiating that step, is the participation that your breakthrough is waiting for. It is not waiting for perfection. It is not waiting for certainty. It is waiting for the specific, courageous, faith-expressing movement of a chosen person who has decided that the door is open and that they are walking through it. Make the decision, take the step, and watch the door respond to the pressure of your movement. Abundance is a state you enter before it is a circumstance you experience. This truth sounds counterintuitive until you examine the lives of people who have sustainably crossed from scarcity into genuine abundance, and then it becomes one of the clearest patterns observable in that transition. The external shift into abundance almost always follows, rather than precedes, the internal shift into an abundant way of operating. What does an abundant way of operating look like, practically? It looks like making decisions from possibility rather than from fear. It looks like thinking about money in terms of creation and multiplication rather than exclusively in terms of conservation and protection. It looks like generosity practiced before the circumstances justify it, gratitude expressed before the provision is complete, and confidence demonstrated before the evidence is overwhelming. These internal shifts, when they are genuine rather than performed, when they arise from actual belief rather than positive thinking technique, create a different quality of attention, a different set of decisions, and a different way of moving through the world that begins attracting the external circumstances of abundance before those circumstances have fully arrived. You are not waiting to feel abundant until the money comes. You are choosing to operate from abundance now in the specific, practical, daily ways available to you at your current level, and letting that choice accelerate the arrival of what you are moving toward. What the hard season built in you is the exact currency abundance requires every person who crosses into genuine, lasting abundance carries something with them across the threshold that people who arrive easily and lose quickly almost never have. They carry earned wisdom, the specific hard-won, tested under pressure knowledge of what they are capable of, what they are made of, what they can navigate and survive and rebuild from. Knowledge that cannot be downloaded or shortcut or acquired any other way than through the specific curriculum of a genuinely difficult season. That wisdom is not incidental to the abundance. It is the foundation on which the abundance can actually be built and sustained. It is what allows the chosen person to make decisions at the level of what is coming rather than being overwhelmed by it, to manage complexity without being consumed by it, to hold significant resources without being changed at the level of character into someone unworthy of them. The difficult season did not delay your abundance. It funded it. It built, in the invisible ledger of your character, the precise deposits that the withdrawal of significant increase will require. Every day of that season was a day of construction, and the structure it produced, the you that is now standing at the threshold of the open door, is more capable of inhabiting and sustaining abundance than any version of you that an easier path would have produced. The first step through the door is the hardest and the most important. There is a physics of breakthrough that I want to describe because understanding it changes the relationship between where you are and the step you need to take. The resistance is highest at the threshold, not in the middle of the room, not at the far wall. At the threshold, the precise point of transition between where you have been and where you are going. At the threshold, every fear you carry becomes loudest. Every doubt arrives with its most compelling argument. Every past disappointment positions itself as evidence that the step you are about to take leads somewhere you have already been rather than somewhere genuinely new. This is not because the threshold is actually the most dangerous point. It is because the threshold is where the transition from the familiar to the unfamiliar occurs, and the part of you that is wired for safety responds to that transition with a full activation of its protective mechanisms. The first step through the door, the specific, initiating movement into the abundance that is waiting, will feel harder than every subsequent step, not because it is riskier than they are, because it is the step that breaks the inertia, that moves you from standing to walking. That shifts the entire physics of your situation from static to dynamic. Once you are moving, everything changes. Momentum builds, evidence accumulates, the direction becomes visible in ways that the threshold obscured. But none of that happens without the first step, and the first step is yours to take. Take it. Abundance requires a community. Begin building yours now. One of the most consistent characteristics of lasting abundance, as opposed to temporary windfall, is that it is almost never built or sustained in isolation. The chosen one who crosses into genuine generational wealth does not do it alone. They do it in relationship with specific people, mentors who have navigated what they are navigating. Peers who are building at a similar level, advisors who bring expertise in areas where the chosen one's own knowledge is limited. And one of the most significant decisions available to you right now in this season, before the abundance is fully established, is the intentional building of those relationships. Not transactionally, not with the calculating energy of someone who is approaching people as resources to be acquired, but with the genuine curiosity and the authentic investment of someone who understands that the wisdom available in relationship with the right people is one of the most valuable forms of capital available. Who do you need to know that you do not yet know? What relationships, if established now, would position you to navigate the arriving abundance with wisdom you do not currently possess on your own? Begin pursuing those relationships with the seriousness that the outcome they enable deserves, because the community you build in this season will be one of the most important factors in determining whether your breakthrough becomes a foundation or a moment. Gratitude is the oxygen of abundance. Practice it before the abundance is complete. There is a specific discipline that every chosen person who sustains abundance over a lifetime develops, and that almost every person who cycles through abundance without holding it neglects. The discipline of gratitude, not the performed social media version, not the affirmation recited without feeling. The actual practiced daily acknowledgement of specific provision present even in incomplete seasons, real even when the fullness has not yet arrived. Gratitude does something to the psychology of abundance that nothing else replicates. It trains the mind to see what is present rather than only what is absent. It keeps the awareness of provision alive and active rather than allowing it to be overridden by the chronic awareness of what remains outstanding. And practically because the brain forms patterns from what it consistently attends to, a gratitude practice literally rewires the automatic processing of your financial reality. It begins creating a baseline experience of having rather than a baseline experience of lacking. And from that baseline, decisions are made, opportunities are recognized, and relationships are formed differently than from a baseline of lack. Begin the practice today, before the abundance is complete, before the provision has arrived at the level you are believing for. Find the specific, real, actual evidence of provision that is already present in your life, however imperfect the season, and acknowledge it deliberately, specifically, and consistently. You are not pretending the incompleteness isn't real. You are refusing to let it be the only reality you see. Your assignment has always been larger than your comfort. Here is something about chosen people that I want to say clearly, because the clarity matters. The abundance you are moving toward is not primarily about your comfort. It is about your assignment. And your assignment, the specific God-given contribution that your life is designed to make, has always been larger than what your comfort could contain. This is important because it changes the motivation for everything you are building. When abundance is primarily about comfort, it has a ceiling, the point at which comfort is achieved, and the motivation to continue building diminishes. When abundance is about assignment, it has no ceiling because the assignment continues expanding in proportion to the capacity that abundance creates. The wealth coming into your life is the fuel for something that extends beyond you. A family legacy, a community impact, a generational shift. A demonstration to everyone who comes after you that the ceiling they assumed was permanent was always breakable, and that the evidence of its breakability is the life you chose to live. Carry that awareness into everything you build. Let it be the answer to every question about why this matters enough to keep going through the parts that are hard. Let it be the motivation that outlasts comfort and outlasts discouragement and outlasts the specific seasons when the progress is invisible. Your assignment is the reason, and your assignment is worthy of everything the building requires. The timing of your breakthrough is not late, it is precise. I want to speak directly to the accumulation of disappointment about timing that I know many of you are carrying. The years that felt like delay, the seasons that passed without the visible progress that the effort seemed to justify, the moments of hope that arrived and then did not immediately convert into the breakthrough they seemed to be announcing. I want to offer a reframe that I believe is not just comforting but accurate. The timing of your breakthrough, including everything that has felt like delay, has been precise. Not in the sense that every day of waiting was pleasant or that the length of it was without cost, but in the sense that the arrival of abundance at any earlier point in your journey would have found a version of you that was not yet fully equipped to receive it, steward it, and sustain it at the level it is coming at. The person you are today, forged by the specific combination of what the waiting built in you, is the person who can actually hold what is coming, who can make the decisions that significant increase requires, who has the character, the wisdom, and the settled sense of self that abundance at this level demands from its recipient. The timing protected you, even when it felt like punishment, even when the cost of it felt disproportionate, even when you could not see from inside the season what the season was doing. Trust the timing. Not blindly, with the evidence-based trust of someone who can look back at what the difficult seasons produced and recognize honestly that the production was real and that the person it created is genuinely more capable than the one who would have arrived earlier. Stepping into abundance means leaving something behind. Let it go with grace. No transition is only about what is being entered. Every threshold is also a departure. And stepping through the door of abundance into a genuinely new financial reality requires leaving behind some things that have been present throughout the building season. Some of what must be left behind is obvious. Financial habits that served a season of scarcity but will undermine a season of abundance. Relationships whose foundation was shared struggle rather than genuine mutual investment. Beliefs about money and about yourself that were formed in limitation and that will continue producing limitation if they are carried into the new season unchanged. But some of what must be left behind is less obvious and more costly. The identity of the one who is waiting. The self-concept that has been defined for so long by the striving, by the reaching toward something not yet achieved. The specific sense of self that the difficulty and the effort and the not yet of this season has produced. That identity served its purpose. It kept you going through seasons when going required everything you had. But it is not the identity of the season you are entering. And holding on to it, keeping one foot in the old chapter, even as the new one opens, is one of the most consistent ways that chosen people delay their own full entry into what they have been building toward. Let it go, with gratitude for what it carried you through, without grief for what is being left behind, with the full, open, forward-facing posture of someone who is done waiting because the waiting is over. The fullness of what is coming requires the fullness of who you are, the final truth. The one I want to stay with you longest. The abundance that is opening to you right now is not designed for a diminished version of you, not for the version that plays small to avoid the discomfort of being seen, not for the version that apologizes for its gifts or minimizes its vision or makes itself more palatable to environments that were never capable of containing what you actually are. It is designed for the full version. The one who arrived at this threshold through everything this season has cost, fully present, fully themselves, fully inhabiting the gifts and the calling and the particular irreplaceable way of being in the world that belongs only to you. That full version has been present throughout. It has been waiting, sometimes patiently, sometimes with the particular frustration of someone who knows they are larger than their current container, for a season that could hold it, for an abundance that matched the scale of the vision, for the arrival of circumstances that finally gave the full version of you the room to operate at its actual scale. That season is here. That abundance is opening. That room is being made. Walk into it as yourself, not as a performance of yourself. Not as the careful, contained, socially calibrated version that learned to make other people comfortable by staying small. As yourself, fully, without the apology, without the minimizing, without the protective smallness that this season can now finally, completely, irreversibly release. The door is open. The abundance is real. And the only person capable of fully inhabiting what is on the other side of that threshold is exactly who you already are. Step through. Before this conversation ends, I want to do something simple. I want to acknowledge you. Not generically, specifically. The person who made it to the end of this conversation, who listened through every section, who received each truth with the openness that it required, is not a passive observer of their own life. They are someone who is actively, deliberately, and with full commitment engaged in the work of becoming who they were created to be. That is not small. In a world that makes passive consumption easy and active becoming hard, the choice to engage, to be present, to be honest, to be willing is itself an act of courage that deserves acknowledgement. So I am acknowledging it. You showed up today, in the fullest sense of that phrase. And here is what I need you to carry from this moment into everything that follows. The door is open. It is not almost open. It is not in the process of opening. It is open right now for you, in the specific season you are living in, with the specific gifts you carry and the specific purpose your life is designed to fulfill. And the abundance on the other side of it, the financial reality, yes, but also the freedom, the impact, the generational legacy, the specific contribution that only you can make at the specific scale that your breakthrough will resource. That abundance is not waiting for you to become more worthy. It is waiting for you to believe that you already are. That belief held consistently, expressed through daily decisions, demonstrated through the specific, practical way you begin moving toward what is open, rather than continuing to wait for what you now know is already available, is the final step. Take it today, not tomorrow. Not when the circumstances look different or the confidence feels more complete or the fear has finally quieted. Today, with the circumstances as they are, with the confidence you currently have, with the fear still present but no longer in charge, the door is open, the abundance is real, and you chosen, prepared, and more than ready are walking through it now. If this conversation gave you something real today, something specific that shifted how you see your situation or the step you need to take, subscribe. Every week we bring you the kind of deep, honest, spiritually and psychologically grounded content that chosen people need at the exact moment their journey demands it. Your door is open. Your abundance is real. Your step is now. Walk through it with everything you are. And watch what becomes possible on the other side.